The tabletop takeaway.
Game mechanics on display.
3 designers share the stage.
Pick a genre and we'll play.
The tabletop takeaway.
Welcome back to the Tabletop Takeaway. I'm Charlie McCarran,
I'm Trevor Miller-Hagel.
I'm Ananda Gunratna.
and this is our third in our Hidden Movement game series. We're going to talk about Captain Sonar, and I love this game. It's a up to 8-player game where there's 2 teams sitting on opposite sides of the table, and there's a big screen in the middle, and we are both on different submarines and moving around through the ocean and trying to not get blown up by the other sub.
Or by trying to blow up the other sub.
Or you have to blow them up before they blow you up.
Yep.
Yep. And each player on the team takes on a different role. And first off, there's the captain, who is moving the sub around on a grid. And there's coordinates like battleship style, B7 or...
Columns and rows.
Yeah, and you start on a spot that's unknown to the other team. But they are using, radio technology so that you can listen into your other sub and hear what direction they're going in. So north, south, east, west. Mm-hmm. So the second role is the radio operator, who's listening actually to the other team.
On the other side of the board.
Yeah, as they announce, we're going north, we're going west, south,
West,
south,
east. You can't go. You can't go west. You already went. You can't. What are you doing?
Yeah. So, and this is all real time game, I should mention. Mm-hmm. It's all happening kind of chaotically at once. But the radio operator has this clear plastic board that can be overlaid on top of the map, their own map. That you start drawing these directions you're hearing, like south, okay, I'll draw a line downward. East, I draw one going right, and so on. And you're making this shape of where you think the other sub is going, and then you have to use your transparent sheet and kind of match it up so that it's a plausible path. Because there's islands on the map too, and they can't go through islands.
Right.
So you're trying to fit in kind of retroactively figuring out where they started. And if you've got that locked in, then you know where they are, and that's when you start to use all these other effects like torpedoes and mines. And so that's the next role, is the first mate is basically loading the weapons based on what your captain is using as directions.
I think you just mark whatever you want to charge.
Oh, you
up.
mark whatever, yeah. But, okay, so yeah, you're charging up what you want as the first mate, torpedoes, mines. There's also sonar, which gives you clues into where the other sub is. So there's various points throughout the game where you have to pause and say, okay, we're going to use sonar on you.
Yeah.
So the game stops for a moment entirely.
Yeah.
Or like drones are running silent.
Drones, yeah. And some of them are like, you have to give us one piece of false information and one piece of true information based on your coordinates and the zone you're in. Sector you're in. And the other one, they just have to give you outright, like, what sector are you in of the 9 sectors there are. So that's the first mate. And then the engineer is managing kind of like all the stresses on the ship. Each time you move in a direction, they have to mark down a little box on this. They have a mini image of the sub, and you have to play this little game of making sure that the ship is still operational so that you can use torpedoes, for example. It's really fun. Our play, we played 2 games, and we ended up getting a bit lucky.
Torpedo
Direct hit torpedoes.
I mean, Charlie, you got 2 direct hits like not back to back,
but it was pretty close.
It was pretty close.
So we did have a 7-player game, which is a weird count for this game. But my team had 4, and I was mostly teamed up with Charlie's game night folks. And then Charlie and Ananda were on the other team with one of the game night folks. And my team was just sundered twice, and it was heartbreaking. One was my own mistake in the first time because I was the captain moving around, and then I accidentally damaged our ship, because I overused one of the directions.
Yeah.
And it filled it up, and we had to.
Yeah. So one of the other things that's going on in this game too, that makes it harder as the captain is you can't double back on your own lines that you've drawn.
It's like Snake.
Yeah.
Or Tron.
Yeah. So thematically it doesn't really make sense in the open sea, but for this game to work, you have to do it. And what happens when you get totally stuck in a corner, because you definitely will at some point, you have to surface. And that means you can erase basically everything on your board and start fresh. But you have to tell them exactly where you are.
Yeah.
Well, you just have to tell them which sector.
Well, which
you're
sector?
In. Not your exact coordinates.
Yeah.
But the sector is often enough information.
Yeah.
Then you
can. All the explosives do a 3x3 grid and damage. So like
with extra damage at the center.
Extra damage at the center. And so since I think the sectors were each 5x5 or something like that, maybe 6x6. Something like that. Like you're really like, if you're in the sector and they aim for about the center, you're probably going to get hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, yeah, it's good.
So much like in these other hidden movement games we've talked about, there's moments where, the hidden person is revealed, which seems to be a really key component to these games.
Yeah.
It's like you can't stay hidden for the entire game.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to know where they are at some point so you can adjust where you are, your strategy, and get just that little bit of information so you can actually play.
Well, and in this game, another interesting thing is, of course, both teams are hidden. And whenever you attack, you are revealing information about yourself to the other team. Because if you shoot a torpedo at them, they know you're within 4 spaces of whatever space you shot a torpedo at. And if you blow up a mine, and assuming the radio operator was keeping track of where you were when you planted that mine, they suddenly have, they know where the mine blew up, and they know approximately where you planted it. So that now they can use that to figure out where you are right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So attacking reveals some useful information to your opponent.
Yep. Either torpedo or mine.
Yeah. Which I ended up using to our advantage when I realized, they can't have gone too far.
Right
and I heard a couple south in there. So even though I wasn't necessarily looking at the...
Fired from the hip.
Yep, fired from the hip. Fire into open space.
And literally was a dead shot and killed us.
You got 2 of those in the same game.
Oh, you are there? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, what? You didn't know that?
Yeah.
Well, it's very... Yeah, it's a really great system because you're... As the captain... I hadn't played the captain that much before, if ever, but I've played the other roles. And the captain's fun because you sort of are trying to, like, fake them out by, like, going through a small channel. It's like, no, they wouldn't have gone through that area. But yet, if you go through that small channel, there's only one escape route, and they could just come around the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think intentionally I doubled back on myself and just made like a tight U shape, just like because it could literally fit anywhere on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Like hopefully that kept us safe. It did not forever, but it was a good start.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess just thinking about the idea of revealing information as a cost of doing things in general.
Sure. Yeah.
That's I think that's a pretty good way to balance out actions in these games,
especially real time. Oh my god.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting cost too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there are other hidden movement games that have something like that.
Where you reveal and you receive something for revealing, or
I mean, obviously, the stifling dark. Whenever the murderer stabs you, you know. Well, actually, no.
You know roughly where they are.
No, there are several things that do the same thing in the stifling dark, because like a bunch of the adversary's abilities require you to be within a certain number of spaces or line of sight. And so using those abilities does give the players useful information about
Where you are.
or like going, yeah. The Stifling Dark also does a really good job of using that. Scotland Yard doesn't, mainly because in Scotland Yard the hider isn't really doing anything except running away.
Right.
So they have no other objectives that they would need to reveal information to pursue.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really love this game, and I think it's, again, just like the Stifling Dark, it really marries itself to the theme. Like, I do feel like I'm a part of this ship's crew, and we're like trying to navigate these waters and take out the enemy as like an actual group. And it's real time, so like things are happening, and then someone will just like stop, and I'm like, okay, stop. And you just like feel like your adrenaline a little bit. It's like, oh man, okay, are we going again? Are we going yet? Okay, we have to now draw the thing around the circle. Okay, we got it. So to repair your ship, you have to draw within the lines around the different like areas of your ship.
Yeah.
But each person has to do one area. And so you're like passing this frantically back and forth while the other group's trying to find you and kill you. It's great.
It's pretty interesting, really, because, and I think this might be my takeaway, but the tasks that you're asked to do in the game are not very complicated.
No, right.
They don't involve a lot of deep thought, and in part, it is a real-time game. But I think I have noticed this in several real-time computer games as well, couch co-op games.
Sure.
Like Unrailed, Overcooked, Played Up, that basically if you combine teamwork, so working on a team, with very simple tasks and real-time gameplay, you will generally have a pretty good time. Like in one of the roles in Captain Sonar, the first mate role, it isn't like there are barely any decisions. You're just deciding which track to charge up, and then you tell your teammates once something's ready. Which is why it's generally combined with the engineer when you have fewer than 8 players. But even that feels satisfying, I think, when you're on a team and you're all working together towards an objective, because even if your specific role isn't that complicated or doesn't require that much thinking or strategy or anything to achieve, even if it's literally just tracking information and reporting that information to your allies, you still feel like you're working together towards something bigger.
You're a cog in the machine.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I've seen the same thing in these computer games, like these games about cooking, Overcooked and Played Up. They're so fun, but all you do is you go to a station, you press a button, and you hold down a button. You go somewhere else, you hold down a button. It's like there's nothing to it, but it's fun because you're working together with other people.
I need onions. Oh God, you need onions. You're running off to get onions. Yeah.
Like I think that is actually a very reliable formula for a fun game. Is real time plus teamwork plus very simple tasks.
Yeah.
And I'll add one to that is asymmetric roles.
Yes.
Because
that makes it even better.
I think like there's other real time co-op games that I don't love, like Escape.
I was just going to mention
because,
Escape.
I think it's cool. I appreciate it, but it feels like anyone can do anything, and you're all kind of just like
escaping.
Yeah, you're all doing the same thing, and
very Scotland Yard of the of the real time games. Yeah.
And the other thing that I think might be my takeaway is the mix between real time and the pauses of like, hey, okay, now there's this moment.
Yeah.
The torpedo happens, because like games like Escape, or a lot of times you think real time. Oh yeah, we just play the whole thing as fast as possible.
Right. Yeah, you're rolling dice, just trying to get those right things, and you get locked dice, and it's like, I need help unlocking these dice. Okay, I'll come help you unlock the dice.
And I guess Escape does have moments where you do 3 rounds, I think, where you have to get back, and then you have to go back out, and you have to get back to the middle.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
it's been a minute.
But Captain Sonar, it just works so well as a real time.
Well, and I think just to steer us back a little bit to hidden movement with it, it's the only one I know of where both sides are hidden.
Yes.
I don't know of any other hidden movement game personally that has where both teams are hidden from each other, or both individuals, whatever it is, but where you have no information, but you're trying to glean it from the other people by what they're saying, what they're doing. And I really like that. It is a symmetric game between the two teams, but then every role in that team is asymmetric.
Yeah.
There is. So I was thinking of another hidden movement game, Escape from the Aliens from Outer Space.
Which is not the escape games.
Nope, it's a different one. This one is everyone has their own personal whiteboard type hex grid thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
Thing that's like you're on a ship together, and pretty much everyone is plunged into darkness, and half of the people are humans, half are aliens, but you don't know who's who. So it's got like a social deduction plus hidden movement. Pretty interesting, and yeah, that feeling of like, oh, I don't know exactly where people are,
right.
but you can kind of deduce in that. But yeah, I agree. Captain Sonar is pretty unique in a lot of regards.
Oh yeah. I don't know how they came up with the idea, but they did a great job because holy cow. So yeah, my takeaway I think is if you are going to have those opposing hidden roles or hidden sides, then having more frequent touching base of where they might be is really important, so that you're not both just blindly moving around a map and it's silent or something like that. Like having a game where there is more dialogue, more things happening, even if it is turn-based, having more frequent ways to glean where the other team is or the other person is good. Because just then it gives you hints and clues that you can kind of figure out what's happening. If it's too silent, then it's going to be a very boring game.
Yeah, the communication aspect is super fun in this.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
I can't think of another game where you have to pay attention to what they're saying, and that will help give you clues.
I mean, okay, I can think of other games where you have to pay attention to what they're saying, like so, especially like social deduction games.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But
that it relates to a mechanic too that you're working like with in the game too. Like social deduction, it can be like, oh yeah, because they're 3 spaces away from so and so, then that means that they don't have the thing, and so you're using that. But like it feels different for some reason. I don't know why. I know what you're saying. But yeah, I
guess there are a lot of. I was just remembering a prototype we played at Protospiel last weekend.
That's cutting edge.
That's.
But I guess maybe the thing is the things that they're saying correspond directly to game mechanics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like whenever they do the mechanic, they have to say the thing.
Yeah,
and ideally they get the direction right.
Sorry, Nick.
But
well, to go on sort of a team game tangent here a bit, I do think there should be more team games.
Yes, absolutely.
and team versions of games too. Like I would say, if you can try a game that is your design. For example, so I made the game For Humors that I never thought about it as a team game, but it
you have
just
alliances.
Works by accident as a team game because it's kind of a hidden worker placement type game, and it's alliances and area control ish. And what I did is I just have the teams be on like say there's 4 players, you're opposite your teammate,
right?
So you're taking turns in
team
every
order.
other team.
Yeah.
And the funny thing I realized is that you can say anything you want to help your teammate, but there's always going to be the player to your left is not on your team, so they could try to block you in between. Right. So like that kind of back and forth is really fun to me.
So like, but yeah, like take a 2-player game. So like Battleship plus teams equals
Captain
Sonar.
Yeah.
Chess plus teams.
Sure.
I don't know, checkers plus teams.
Do you have any ideas? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Maybe this is getting into our next episode.
Yes, it's true.
What will we do with all these things we've learned from
all this knowledge,
hidden
all this
movement?
information?
Yeah, but that was my tangent. Have I said a takeaway yet? I don't think so.
What's your takeaway from being on a submarine and being a masterful captain?
Yeah, I think my takeaway is the role of the radio operator is so fun to me, where they're the ones who are listening to the directions north, south, east, west, and you're drawing out this path, but you don't know the origin of the path.
Right. So you're
And
trying to figure
you have
that
to
out.
like, yeah.
Deduce.
The more information you get from them, the clearer it becomes where it could be. But I love that idea, and I would love to try to use that in another type of game where you're learning what the path was, but not
It
where it started.
It's sort of a game about organizing information.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the path, but you can also learn things like when they plant a mine, you probably want to notate they planted a mine at this point because you can use that information later. Or like when they surface, obviously, you want to notate that somehow. You want to notate information you get from scans. But the way that you put all this down on paper is going to affect how well you're able to use it. Which makes me think of, like, for example, Wilmot's Warehouse, which is another game about organizing information to make it more useful.
Oh, interesting.
Video game, right?
Yeah, that one's a video game. That one's about putting stuff in a warehouse and trying to come up with an organizational schema so you can find anything when you need to.
Interesting. That's super nerdy.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, just in general, mechanics around organizing information can be pretty fun, even though you're not technically, quote, doing anything.
Yeah.
You're just organizing information, but
Well, and kind of back
Yeah.
to what you mentioned in the last or Scotland Yard episode, maybe about not shying away from having people draw things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's super fun to be able to just like draw with a dry erase on.
Or write something.
Or even with a pen and pencil on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's okay too.
I haven't actually played any of the Crayon Rails games, but I'm curious to. And I didn't realize that was like literally they use crayons on the board and then wipe them off.
That's awesome.
And yeah.
Well, I have one last piece I wanted to touch on, and it was in regard to the captain role. It's one of the few games where you actually do practice leadership, and it's because you're like, okay, you're working with your, radio comms operator, and then you have the other roles, and they're telling you what you can and cannot do, but you ultimately have all of the decisions of where your ship is going and what it is going to do, and everyone else is weighing in and helping you, but that's that. And it actually reminded me very much so of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. If you have heard of that game or played that game, where you have someone who's like in this kind of leadership position managing the bomb, and they're having all these puzzles that they're sending out to their fellows and trying to keep that information rolling so that you can keep it going. And I think that same skill set would translate really well to Captain Sonar.
That's a really good takeaway because I didn't think about that feeling until you mentioned it. About like, man, during the game when I was the captain, I did feel like self-conscious about being the one who's making the decision to do the torpedo.
Well, that,
And Ananda, you were playing into it too. You're like, "Sir, do you really want to do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know.
I love that.
Should I?" And turns out I should have because I got direct hits. But it was still very funny to me. I felt like I am in charge of this team.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do?
that is a really good point. How many games give you that experience of leadership?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
And not quarterbacking, like when
Right.
where you forcibly take control of what other people are doing, but like it's designed where you make the decision and everyone is supporting you.
Yeah. I mean, there are loads of party games where one person is giving clues, like,
Sure.
like code names.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really feel like leadership.
No.
Like, leadership is, it's a different feeling.
Yeah, you're making these decisions that it's guiding the path of what you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can think of any other games that make me feel that way.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head.
I just had that revelation while we were sitting here. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, there's a connection there.
Yeah, and I think the real time is a big factor of it too,
Yeah.
because like had we had all the time in the world to decide about, we would have done the gamery thing of like, well, let's think this out, puzzle
maximize
it out
this,
during our
okay.
turn, and
Yeah.
then
You take all the time in the world to line up your chart.
there's no time for that.
Okay, I can actually think of one. Blood on the Clock Tower as the demon, you are the leader of the evil team.
Oh, sure.
And you do have the same feeling, and it's a cool feeling. And in that game, it's a lot more stressful because if you die, you lose. But
Right.
it is that same sort of feeling. Like,
Blood on the clock tower.
yeah.
Of course.
just comparing it, it's feeling like, okay, there are these other people that are relying on me.
Yeah.
We're all together. I'm responsible for them.
Your
but-
decision really matters.
Yeah, they're going to defer to me, you know. They're going to offer me advice, but in the end, I'm calling the shots.
right.
It's a really cool feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and the flip side too is kind of like when you are being managed by
Yes.
someone, it's like, well, okay, I'll do my job and I'll try to figure out the best way to help.
That is a really good point. Like when I was playing Captain Sonar as the engineer, I felt very relaxed about it because I'm not the decider. You know,
Right.
if this goes wrong, it's Charlie's fault. I can just focus on my engineering task. On both sides of the equation, there is something that feels really good about being either the leader or the follower.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I think like Frank, who was playing with us, was like, "No, I don't want to be the captain. That's too stressful." And I'm like, I'm literally just like drawing lines on the map. It's not that bad, but once
you get
you're
going.
playing, it's like, oh right,
Oh,
I
man.
gotta not steer us into a corner. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Surface at the right time.
yeah.
Go stealth at the right time or silence. Yeah.
But I kind of like the captain role because I often like doing the risky things, and yeah. But all right.
There we go.
Cool. That's Captain Sonar. And tune in next time for our final episode in the Hidden Movement series, where we sum up what we've learned and talk about what else we could use this mechanic for in our designs. See you next time.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Tabletop Takeaway. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. So please tell your friends and visit our website at thetabletoptakeaway.com, where you can suggest games and mechanics for us to cover next on the show.